for fast, cheap, and reliable Madden 21 Ultimate Team coins. Make sure you guys go check out my sponsor, Easy Mutt. Use code VENOM at checkout for 5% off. Yo, what's good guys, Venomfire here back from the video, and today we bring you guys Henry's Gun Bunch offensive scheme. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these pro schemes, so I'm bringing you guys one that you have requested for a while in Henry. Very unique style of gun bunch. I think you guys will like it a lot. Even if you do run gun bunch, there's going to be some setups that you do not know of and that you can definitely add to your game. Overall, it's one of the best gun bunch schemes that I've brought to you guys overall. So with that being said, we're going to be in the New York Jets offensive playbook, but even though we're in the Jets playbook, we're going to be bringing you guys some unique setups. We're not really going to use some of the more popular plays like Jets dig, but we're just going to kind of keep it simple with flood, spacing, switch, Z-spot, and mesh. As you see in our audibles, we also have halfback base. The other plays we're going to run are going to be bench pivot and flood, as I mentioned. So very solid way of gun bunch. I think you guys will see in a little bit when we go over the setups. Also, before we get into the video, make sure you guys do go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. Each subscriber does matter, so go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content and you want some more. Drop a like if you want more of these videos. Also, let me know in the comments which players you want to see next, because we're not in the middle of like a tournament here, so it's kind of difficult for me to, decide on my own who I want to bring. But yeah, with that being said, we're going to jump straight into it. I'm going to start out with the flood play. One more thing I should have mentioned is that we're running Hot Route Master. Hot Route Master style is the meta for gun bunch as far as that's concerned, and pretty much trips and everything else. I'm just going to run a variation of man coverage and zone coverage, so expect me to kind of switch throughout the video. But starting out in flood, the first way to run it is stock with a flat route. So we're going to flat out running back, and just to show you guys this, some of you know how to do this, some of you don't. Just to snap throw this flat route with your running back Fournette, that's the way to do it. You can kind of quick snap and throw it to Y, and even this is man coverage. You saw Blake Martinez, he's manned up on him, and even though he's manned up on him, you just kind of snap it, you throw it, and he just doesn't defend him. So you can easily throw that pretty much every play against man, pick up 5 yards. But where it gets really good is zone coverage. So if I just switch to this cover 3 right now, you see Jabril Peppers, he's not flat, he's standing right there. We snap it, and I accidentally threw that way too late there. But you usually want to snap it, throw it, and then start air trucking. Guys like Marcel Reese can do that. In particular, Fournette cannot, but that was man coverage again, just to show you a little bit. And that's not the only pass that you can throw. But I just wanted to show this because we're going to run a flat route on a lot of our setups throughout the video, but I'm not going to throw the flat basically at all past this point. So it's just something you can do. But that was zone coverage, that's a look, and it just works every time. You force your opponent to lurk it, or move his man coverage completely to the flats, where you can take advantage with like an angle route. But yeah, so even though we have that flat route, all of these other routes are going to be man coverage, including Evans and Chris Godwin right there. So you really do have a lot of options just running stock flood. In addition, you get the option to quick snap your opponent, which is going to be very frustrating to go up against, because a stock play like flood against stock man coverage is going to win every time, especially with those 2 routes that instantly beat it. And then you add in the flat route, you add in some other stuff. It's going to be very difficult to defend on defense. Moving on to our next setup, it's going to be a very unique setup, one that I hadn't seen before, one that you have probably never seen before. What we're going to do for this setup is we're actually going to put A on an in route, and then I'm just going to flat Antonio Brown or our outside bunch wide receiver. So here's a look at our player. It kind of looks weird because we have an in route, we have another in route, and then we have an out route. Just kind of squared, but trust me, it actually is pretty solid. You see, just against man coverage, Gronkowski, it's instant separation. In addition to him getting separation, Evans will, Godwin will, so all of that. For this setup, you're also actually going to leave Leonard on his block and release hook right there, so that's something to notice. Against man coverage, it's good. You see how the player that was manned up on Fournette kind of got stuck there, so he actually ended up getting open. But mainly, this is more of a zone coverage setup, I would probably say here. We'll audible to zone here. Obviously, taking a look at our left side, we have Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin. So we instantly have a high-low read, forcing your opponent to double flat. I really like the way that the block and release hook and the in-route develop, just because the block and release hook usually takes away one of those mid-read zones or hook curl zones. I think he actually took away the right one in this case because it looked like the left one kind of followed him over. That could be my mistake though. Overall, solid play, especially if they're going with a double Mabel type setup out of a cover 3. Something like this is what I'm referring to. Then you can definitely take advantage. You can throw Godwin there, and then Evans or Gronk would open up later. Anyways, we're going to move into our next setup, and this is where we're going to talk about the flip for the first time. So Henry, when you watch his gameplay, you will see him come out on the short side almost every single time. Now, I'm not going to do this every time because I don't want the video to be 50 minutes long, but this is something that he does and that you could definitely do. Now, the only times I'm going to do it is when I have to either put Evans, which will end up being our solo side receiver, on like a post route, kind of that shorter post, or I have to put Antonio Brown, who will end up being the outside bunch receiver, in a deeper post. So that's actually where we're going to go into. We're going to put AB on this deep post after you come out on the short side. Then when you flip your bunch, he ends up like this, and you are in a great spot right off the bat. Now this post route becomes better if it's a 2nd and 5. Unfortunately, I cannot simulate that situation. I wish we could. Hopefully EA adds it. Cross your fingers, everybody. But until they do, we kind of got to stick with the 1st and 10 situations. But yeah, here's a look at the player. You're just going to add Y on a flat, just like this. Pretty good against man coverage. Antonio Brown's going to get decent separation there. We were able to almost complete it. Again, that post route gets a whole lot more separation in those 2nd and 5s, 3rd and 5s, 2nd and 7s even. But again, just the way to do it is you flip your bunch, or you come out on the short side, you post B, then you flip, and you just flat Y. So after you flip, all you have to do is flat Y, and then you can kind of get the ball off really quickly. So as far as man coverage is concerned, if it's cover 0, also that deeper post can get some separation, big play potential with that. I'll show it one more time here, and I'm going to go through pretty quickly. I do have a lot of setups. I'll leave the written version of the ebook down below in the description, so if you're more of a visual, like to see the setups written down rather than me talking over it, kind of visual rather than audio, you have that option as well. But yeah, man coverage, it's going to be good against zone, specifically against zone. Cover 3 Mabels, that post can get open if they don't have a hook curl on that right side or their user is lacking a little bit. But yeah, again, we have that flat that I mentioned earlier. I didn't throw it, but you could easily throw it out of that setup as well. Anyways, we'll move on to our last setup out of Flood. Pretty unique setup. Now, for this one, he actually ran it in the middle hash mark, and honestly, it is a lot better when you do run it on the middle hash mark or even the short side. The reason is we're going to put Godwin on a crosser, and we're actually going to motion him over. So the style of setup that we're going to do is we're going to go with a max protection. I'm going to block my running back. I'm going to delay fade A. But as far as our other route we're going to do, I'm going to cross RB, and then I'm just going to motion him over. I'm going to quick snap him as soon as I can right about here. And you will see he's not going to be able to get pressed, and we're going to get separation right there. So good against man. It also does work against zone, but the thing against zone is you're not going to get instant separation. So if I'm running it on the left hash mark, I'm going to have to wait for him to run all the way from the far left to the far right to where usually he's going to get open. It's just a little bit better from here, or again, you could even run on the short side. Late play situations, I could throw it across my body to X. As you saw, he's going to get separation, so if he's using hard on RB, that's an easy read for me to make. Or if I'm flushed out of the pocket, I can hit Gronkowski on his delay fade, which is always going to be an option. Now, out of stock gun bunch, it's not super good because sometimes they block really weird out of this, but you see I can roll out, he rushes, and then I can hit him right there. So very throwable football. And with that being said, let's move into our second play, which will be the spacing switch. Now for spacing switch, I do only have 2 setups, but they are pretty solid. Spacing switch is definitely more of a zone coverage beater, I would say. Against man coverage, you just have a lot of hitch routes. That out route's not going to beat man at all. So it's just not really capable to do it. I mean, you can always lowball it, but Henry actually ended up throwing an interception in his game against Ghosts on Mike Evans' route right here. Just he tried to lowball it, he got acrobated, and it ended up being an interception. But for our first setup, what we're going to do is we are going to post that receiver, Mike Evans, but you can also smart route him again. With Godwin, we're going to put him on an in route, and we're going to smart route him. So I'm going to go ahead and do something like this, and then we're just going to flat our running back. So kind of a weird setup. I'm not the biggest fan of this setup, but I will show it. 100% better against zone than man, so I'm going to kind of stick to zone when I'm running this play. But overall, it is throwable. It is a solid setup. This post route is going to be a lot more useful in 2nd and 5s once again here. But as far as the other routes, just kind of a unique setup. It's going to be difficult to use her. You have A who's wide open against cover 3 in most coverages, unless it's man. So if you're running zone, you could easily run spacing switch and kind of switch up a couple of routes and keep catching your opponent off guard with it. I'll show that one more time because, again, I mentioned it's not my favorite setup, but I still wanted to show it just for a couple of plays out of spacing switch. Here's a look. Once again, you can smart out X, and this is actually man coverage. So you see against man, you can hit A, but X is just a little bit riskier. He gets pressed a little bit better off the line of scrimmage, so that's why I kind of stay away with it. Moving on to our next spacing switch setup, what you're going to do here is you kind of saw me do it immediately because I mixed them up a bit, but you're just going to post RB and flat Y. Once again, more of a setup against zone coverage, but still can be thrown. I really do like this kind of combo against cover 3 because you see Mike Evans is going to get open, and even if he doesn't, I can throw RB right over the top because most hook curl zones are pulled down by that little spot route or spacing route, whatever you want to call it, with Evans. But you saw Mike was open himself for a while there. And it's the same thing for Gronkowski. So he's going to have to mix in man coverage. Maybe he's going to have to man up the tight end. You know, he's also going to have to man up the running back because we can still quick snap, throw that flat, or use her the left side of the field immediately. It's just really a headache to defend, and it kind of all starts with Fournette's route. That's why I started talking about it, because you see right there, man coverage, flat route turns into a 15-yard gain. Zone coverage, you can easily pick up 5. If you can air truck, it turns into 10 easily with you being able to truck over those corners with ease. So, yeah, I'll show it one more time. We'll try to hit RB here, but you see how Gronk, he's wide open. That hook curl on the right usually is going to follow Chris Godwin, but it just opens up Gronk even more. So, definitely we'll take that. Moving on to our next play, we're going to go with the base here. He doesn't really run base 8 at all, and I do recommend kind of what he does. If you're going to run the ball out of this Jets offense, you either audible to bunch tight end or you audible to trips tight end offset. So those are way better running options. I'm not going to talk about those, but I'll show the base a little bit. But the base is really not going to be good because you can only run it from one side, and that side is going to be this side with a right-handed QB. If you're using Vic or Tua, I guess, you run it from the side I was originally on, but with a right-handed QB, you run to this side because look at how fast that handoff animation is. Terrible stick there, but you're going to get a lot more yards. You see how slow it is for him to hand off, and even with that slow handoff, we're able to pick up decent yardage, but it's just not as consistent, as strong. Again, more of a passing offense, 100%, but it's always good to have a run in your audibles, and it's always good to mix that in. With that being said, though, we're going to move into our best play, the play that he calls the most. I actually have about 6 setups for this, so I'm going to go pretty quickly through those. I don't want the video to be super long now, but yeah, Z-Spot, definitely the most mainly called play in the formation. So we're just going to start out basic. One setup you've already seen from me in multiple videos now, and it's just going to be this one now. I'm not sure if he was running playmaker at all because he didn't really playmaker in the game that I watched once. So I don't think he was. So you have some extra AP, especially with these setups. They just become good on their own. But here's a look at the setup. Very basic. Usually it's used by playmaker, but man coverage. Chris Godwin gets wide open. I'm not sure what ability he has. Maybe Slot-O-Matic, I think, that allows him to get wide open on that. But yeah, basic setup. This one, good against man. Let's go to cover 3 now. You see, I believe Chris should still get open here. AB is going to pull him down, and then I can pass lead to the right. So good against man zone. This is kind of the stock setup. We're going to pretty much be audibling around from this point, although we do have some more unique setups kind of in that 4, 5, and 6 slot. But moving on to our next one, it's going to be very similar. We're just going to mix in a little bit of a flat route here. So again, that first setup we blocked a running back, mixing in some max protection. Now we're going to flat Y. We're actually going to cross A and just drag X. So here's a look at the setup. Again, this is one that I've talked about, but solid against man. With a better tight end, you're going to get a lot more separation on that crossing route, typically. But just very difficult to stop especially when you consider that you can throw that flat every single time. So that's going to usually have to take away one of the zones or his user from the routes that he actually needs to defend. Here we'll just check down to Evans, and you see, even without playmaker, he makes himself useful, just kind of coming across the middle of the field, creating a high-low between Gronkowski and himself. Moving on to our next setup, what we're going to do here is we're going to smart out RB, we're going to out B, we're going to option Y, you're going to block Gronkowski in this setup, and then you're just going to post X. So again, one of those situations, pretty much every time you have a deep post on this receiver, it's going to be better than 2nd and 5. I'm going to stop saying that, but just remember that. So pretend that this post is a little bit shorter, going to be more sharp against man. But this is just a solid setup, especially with Fournette just getting consistently open against man, because the flat, it'll work, but if he starts lurking it, it's not going to work as much. And then you consider the fact that you can't really hit it in late play situations, whereas he becomes an immediate option, and he's forcing your opponent to maybe throw a flat additionally with man coverage over there. If he's not manned up, he's just going to kind of sit, and he will get open that way as well. But yeah, pretty solid setup if you ask me. Gronkowski, you could also delay fade him if you wanted to, I suppose. But you see Mike Evans, he got really good separation off the line of scrimmage there. And if you get those animations, he's going to be open every time, and that only can be defended with a user. No hook curl is going to back up that far. Again, we all know about these two routes. Not going to show those because I've already thrown those, but those routes can get consistently open against man and zone coverage. But moving on to our next setup, we're going to go ahead and actually come out on the short side. And this will be the case for our next 3 setups. That's why I said they're different than the first 3. For these next 3 Z-spot setups, you're going to come out on the short side of the field. For the first one, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead post B. So again, we're going to go with this deeper post concept. Then you're going to flip back. You're going to max protect. And then you're going to smart out RB and drag X, I believe, just like this. It does look weird on paper, and it looks a little bit better when B is, again, shorter. But for now, pretty good against man coverage. You see how AB is going to get open. Chris, look at that separation. You have the drag. And again, even though I don't know if he used Playmaker, you can 100%. And that's what I do. I always use Playmaker on this guy. So even if I were running these setups, they would be better with Playmaker. And just because he didn't use it does not mean that you cannot use Playmaker. Once again, starting out on that short side, put B on a post, flip. You're going to max protect, smart out RB, and drag X. This is going to be a lot better if they were to go with a cover 0 blitz, something like this. Just stock man, they're going to blitz 6 people. You can kind of tell maybe he has to tell when he's blitzing, and then I can snap the ball. Scroll over, B, he's going to get separation, although bad throw on the run with Brady. But you saw the separation was there. So again, post route, pretty solid. You can get these route technician abilities, which will make that post get a lot more separation as well. But let's move into our next setup. And these next 2 are going to be a little bit different. This was going to be the other way I mentioned of starting out with your bunch on this side. And it's actually getting this solo side receiver on this fatter post. You're going to put X on a post route now. Flip it. You're going to smart out RB. As I think I'm in flood accidentally, so I'm going to redo that. Actually, my first time, I think, in this video actually coming out on the wrong play, which is pretty impressive considering I usually do that a lot. But you're going to come out on the short side, post X, then smart out RB. You're going to out B, streak A, and flat Y. So very sound. This one's very, very difficult to defend. It kind of looks similar to the one with the option route or tight end blocked. Only we have a clear out here in the middle, and we have our running back on the flat instead. Good against zone. Let's run it against man. You will see Evans. This post route is going to be a lot more consistent. So if you were in a 2nd and 10 and wanted to run it, I like this post route a little bit better than the deeper one, specifically against man coverage and also zone coverage. So here, even in a cover 3 zone, I'll show you what it looks like. Just put X on that kind of fat post, flip it back around. And again, when you're running these flips, make sure you always come out with your bunch like this. He's probably going to expect a flip, but you can also catch him off guard if you just snap the ball like that. It just saves time for you, allows you to catch him off guard. Here's a look at the rest of the player. Again, zone coverage here. Y is going to be open. I can easily throw this because you see how the tight end's going to take away one of those hook curl zones, allowing me to throw it to Evans. I'll show it one more time because our next setup is pretty similar to this one. But again, just flip. I'm in the wrong play, but I'm just going to kind of run it because I don't want to spend more time. Just pretend that RB is on a corner out, although actually you probably could run it like this and have success. Man coverage, you see how Evans is consistently going to beat it. So that's the reason that could be a little bit better than the deeper one. But again, still safe to run those other setups the way that I mentioned them. But let's hop into our last way to run Z spot. And then we have one setup out of mesh, one setup out of bench pivot. So for this one, what you're going to do is, again, you're going to post X, and then you're just going to flip back, smart out RB, streak B. We're going to drag A and block our running back. So here's a look at our setup. Kind of basic. Also with this one, we're going to mix in some motion AB out and snap it there. You see how AB almost has separation. Chris wide open on his corner out. The post is open. Just kind of drag. Drag can also get separation. Just kind of, again, one of these setups where you put it all together. I like this one a lot. Just because sometimes these basic concepts are a little bit better. Let's go to zone now. Sometimes it's better to keep it simple with like a little drag to post. Gronkowski, he's going to get open on that drag almost every single time against man, against zone, unless there's a hard flat there. So pretty good to mix in. I'm not going to talk about this too much, but I'll go over it one more time here. Again, just post X. Flip it back around here. Smart out RB, streak B, drag A. And this is, again, a nice 6-man protection, which we haven't talked about a whole lot, but 100% something you can mix in. So there you see, corner out, it's been open every single play against every single coverage thus far. But yeah, let's move into our last play in this set of audibles. Then I'll hop into bench pivot. We only got one real setup for that play. But with mesh, you're going to go ahead, smart out B, cross RB, and then you can drag X. X is already on a drag, so if I wanted to snap the ball earlier, realistically I could. But this drag is a little bit different, as you see there, so I think it's important to mention. This is going to be a max protect setup, and he actually didn't run mesh a whole lot. I'm sure he has other setups with his ebook or something like that. But again, this is just from one game that I watched. But here's a look at the setup. So very good against man coverage, not going to be super good against zone. It can become a lot better with playmaker, but you see how AB, he should get separation. Now AB doesn't have any abilities, and he's slow, and he's a lower overall receiver, so he's not going to get super good separation, especially against James Bradbury in stock man-to-man coverage. So that's something that you should recognize. James Bradbury, I think, overall is a better player, or at least he should be. But yeah, we'll see if we can get some separation, which sometimes you can. You see, boom, AB, there. That time he wins the matchup. So that mesh route, it's similar to the Z-spot one. It's a little bit deeper. And again, more times people put their abilities on this slot guy, so it could be a tell if you move to the outside, which you could. But it's still good separation. You saw there with no abilities. As far as your other routes go, let's go to zone coverage. You see AB, I think, should still get open here, but this is another one of those setups where you're expecting them to send coverage or send a lot of guys, something like this. Maybe like a weird little 5-man rush here. So you're going to block the house here. You got a little crosser, which you can hit, as we do right there. You have the drag route that you could maybe playmaker if you have that. But overall, a solid play. With that being said, let's hop into bench pivot now. In bench pivot, this is a setup that he ran multiple times out of it, and it was when he was expecting man coverage. So I'm only going to run against man. I don't think it's too good against zone anyways, but the setup he ran was relatively stock. All he did was slant RB. So it's just this. You have the corner out, you have the same out route, you have the same in route, but you just slant that slot receiver. Again, it's pretty good against man coverage. You see how Gronk's open, RB is open. I think B might have got a little bit of separation. But overall, it's a solid play. Even if he did maybe mix in zone a little bit, it can be good. But my only kind of worry is that the slant and the in route do kind of run into each other. So it becomes a little bit of a late read with that in route, which is not typically favorable in my opinion at least. It's more of a hot read. So again, more of a cover zero. He sends everybody at your head here, pause, and he just like rushes the entire team. You would go with something like this, just complete cover zero. You're blocking your running backs, you have extra protection, and you just kind of quick snap him. So you're just going to have all these routes that beat coverage X. You typically get a better release than that. And it's a pretty solid play. Again, it's not worth putting in your audibles. Worth running a couple times a game, though, if that makes sense. And you can definitely mix in other setups out of this play as well. This is just the only one that he actually ran, so it's the only one I'm going to talk about. Again, 25 minutes of the extra setups will definitely help you online, which I just brought to you guys here. Combine that with all the other bunch of videos I've done, and you have just so many setups, and it's going to be really difficult for your opponent to guess what you're doing. Overall, definitely one of the best bunch setups, just as far as unique combinations that you can add to your game. If you guys enjoyed, once again, hit that subscribe button, drop a like for more of these videos. Also, follow me on Twitter. Link will be down below in the description. If you have any questions, you can also ask me there. And I post updates on my channel, stuff like that. But yeah, with that being said, peace. I'm out of here.